Hello everyone. Welcome to my Turkish Spotlight Secrets channel. All the details are in my video. If you enjoy this kind of deep dive, please like and subscribe, and if you want to support even more, the join button is right below. Thank you so much, and now, let's get into it. In the last few days, the European and Turkish press have exploded with headlines about a romance many assumed was sealed off and stored away, the story of Akınözü and Ebru Şahin. The spark that reignited everything came from an unexpected place, and from a moment raw enough to cut through screens. On the Spanish program La Revuelta, Akin appeared with a tenderness the audience rarely gets to witness. He spoke slowly, eyes glossy with memories he couldn't quite tame, and admitted that while chasing professional triumphs, he had misplaced far more than time. As he wiped at the corner of his eye, he said, in essence, that Abru had been the singular woman in his life, and that somewhere between long shoot days, flights, and new opportunities, his heart had slipped from his grasp. The confession ricocheted through social media, clips, translations, and commentary flooded every platform, leaving fans and skeptics alike breathless, nostalgic, and divided. The response many had been waiting for did not dawdle. After a storm of debate and speculation, Abru stepped into the light on her own terms. She chose a prestigious fashion event in Istanbul as her stage, a setting where the flash of cameras and the quiet judgment of style editors usually dominate. But when she appeared, it felt like the room surrendered to her presence. She wore black, sleek, sculpted, and undeniably commanding. It wasn't just the dress that hushed the crowd, though, it was her aura, that rare blend of gentleness and resolve that can make even the loudest room lean in and listen. As microphones gathered like bees, a reporter dared the obvious question: had she watched Akin's emotional appearance? Abru's voice remained soft, yet carried a steadiness that turned the air electric. Yes, she had watched it. Yes, it was moving. But she added a detail that shifted the entire atmosphere: every story carries two perspectives. She explained that she had stayed quiet not because she lacked words, but because she didn't want to be dragged back into a time she had already grieved and outgrown. And then she said it was time for her side to be heard. That sentence alone reshaped the evening. You could sense the room tighten with anticipation. Recorders edged closer. Pens hovered above notebooks, ready to catch what would come next. With candor that stung, Abru began to share the contours of their past. She said love had indeed been there, undeniable and powerful. But, she continued, love doesn't thrive alone, it needs trust, respect, and mutual backing to survive the crosswinds of fame and ambition. She had offered everything she knew how to give, she said, but in those crucial moments, his devotion to the next project, the next flight, the next meeting seemed to outpace his devotion to them. Her words didn't lash out. They came like carefully placed stones, building a quiet monument to a truth she could no longer keep inside. Then came the line that silenced even the most talkative columnists. It wasn't she who left, she explained. He was the one who kept moving forward without looking sideways. Projects abroad. New strategies. Fresh faces on his team. Plans that morphed weekly, then daily. She wanted a steady home base, a life anchored in small rituals. He needed new horizons, bigger sets, wider stages. And in that widening space between what she wanted and what he needed, their tenderness turned into distance. She didn't say it with anger, she said it with the grief of someone who has already done the crying in private. Someone asked if she regretted anything. Abru's answer was pared back, almost whispered, yet sharp enough to trend within minutes. No, she said, there were no regrets, because what she felt had been true. The pain was proof of the depth of the feeling, not a stain upon it. But it is a feature of human nature, she added, to recognize value after it slips through your fingers. Her poise, her ability to stand centered while the room's pulse quickened, made even her critics take a half step back. Another question followed, one that might have wounded had she been less prepared. Did she see Akin cry on television? She paused, and the pause itself spoke of shared memories, the kind that changed shape under bright lights. She said she saw it, and of course it hurt to revisit what had been lost. But she laid down a boundary without raising her voice, Tears, she said, are not a reliable scale for sincerity. Sometimes they measure regret. Sometimes they measure the passing of time and opportunities. The only person who truly knows what she felt back then, and what she feels now, is herself. It was not a blow, but a graceful defense of her reality. The room held its breath, as if the act of exhaling would disrupt the fragile honesty settling over everyone. And then, just when you thought the conversation might collapse under the weight of nostalgia, a reporter took a risk and asked about Akin's current relationship, pointing out that his televised confession could have left his partner exposed to scrutiny. The question could have given birth to a scandal within the scandal. Instead, Ebru declined the bait. She said she does not sit in judgment over anyone's relationship. She insisted it would be unfair to assess someone else's love in the shadow of hers. Akin, she added carefully, deserves to be with someone who genuinely makes him happy. But she also folded in a subtle wisdom: a person cannot build a lasting future if they are always reaching back to talk about what once was. She didn't mention names. She didn't roll her eyes or smirk. She just struck a tone that sounded like maturity itself. That single moment felt like both blessing and warning, an acknowledgement of his right to move on, paired with a reminder that progress demands a forward gaze. The cameras tried to capture everything at once: the tightness of her jaw, the softness of her eyes, the steadiness of her spine. What landed on screens the next day was a portrait of a woman who has turned experience into knowledge and pain into proportion. As the evening advanced, her words sharpened while her voice stayed even. Some people, she said, get comfortable living in yesterday's glow, replaying highlights because they're afraid to write a new chapter. Others, herself included, would rather risk the blank page than recycle what's already been written. The line resonated not only with fans but with anyone who has ever tried to close a door without slamming it. You could feel the audience's respect expand, inch by inch, as if the room itself understood the difference between a sound bite and a lesson. Then a direct question cut through: did hearing Akin speak bring her peace? Abru looked down, collecting her thoughts like fragile glass, and then answered with a truth that held no pity for herself or for him. Peace, she said, does not arrive on demand. It's not an award you receive because you endured a difficult chapter. But speaking honestly, to yourself first, then to the world, is often worth more than the temporary calm that comes with silence. She said she no longer wished to live under the shadow of what used to be. She had needed to voice her truth in her own words, and now she had done exactly that. The reporters, fully aware that they were witnessing a pop culture turning point, kept the questions flowing. Was this a watershed moment for both of them? Abru nodded. Life rarely bends to the neat outline we sketch in our heads, she said, but it never fails to teach. She had learned what she needed to learn. The rest, whatever it might be, was up to him. When she left, cameras flared like a constellation. Applause rolled across the hall, not wild, but respectful, and the last image many carried home was her backlit silhouette vanishing past velvet ropes. That image told the story better than the headlines that followed. It said, "I am not who I was, but I honor who I have been." It said, "I can remember without relapsing." It said, "I have closed a chapter without tearing out the pages." By morning, newspapers across the continent ran with the same angle. They praised the force and delicacy with which she spoke, and the way she managed to steer a moment that could have spiraled into messy spectacle into something more reflective. Instead of counterattacking, she offered context. Instead of yearning backward, she radiated evolution. Analysts replayed the footage frame by frame, dissecting the tremor of her voice, the decisions in her wording, the calm in her posture, searching for subtext that might confirm their favorite narratives. And yet, beneath all the chatter, the essential stayed simple: a conversation that had lingered in rumor finally found clarity. As for Akin, his appearance on La Revuelta will be remembered not for its theatrics but for its candor. Whatever you think of his timing, it took vulnerability to say out loud that success can be a lonely currency. The message that echoed long after the broadcast was not just that he missed a person, but that he missed the version of himself who had been capable of holding that love. And maybe, in its own way, that admission was the first step toward the lesson Abru suggested he still needed to find. Of course, the internet rarely moves in a single direction. Some defended him, pointing out that ambition and love can coexist, that life on set is not a betrayal, but a calling. Others applauded Abru for drawing lines with grace, for refusing to let nostalgia rewrite cause and effect. What united both camps was the feeling that the window they had been peering through for years was finally shutting. Not with a bang. With a well-placed click. Now, here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Akınözü is still tangled in the past he tried to explain on television, or were those tears the respectful last note on a song that had already ended? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which other Turkish artists you want to see discussed here next. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming. If you'd like to support our work directly, hit the join button to access exclusive content and keep this community thriving. At Turkish Spotlight Secrets, we don't just chase headlines, we follow the heartbeats behind them. Thank you for watching. Take care, and see you in the next one.